Greetings and salutations. Unfortunately for you, I'm back with another video. I got done a little earlier on my route today, but then again, I started my route a little earlier today. So, currently waiting on dinner from the wife. She's cooking it. Took a little longer than she thought it would. Kids are just taking a nap right now, so all good. But I wanted to discuss a subject. I guess now it's time for me to talk about it. Um, because some people on Facebook have asked my opinion. I want to make my opinion official here. First, I want to reference kind of what sparked the idea of this video. If you're not familiar with his channel, John the Basic Expert has talked about AI art in his past couple of videos and talked about the knee-jerk reaction he gets from people. I find this a little disheartening because tend to echo John's opinions. Now, I don't agree with all of his takes on everything. I don't agree with all of his approaches to certain things, but I'm a viewer of his channel. I think he makes good content. I believe he makes good content. And even some of the stuff that I don't necessarily agree with, I can at least think, well, I see his point. So I see why he thinks this way or that. When it comes to this subject, dinner just arrived, so I'm waiting for it to cool. But anyways, John was talking about the use of AI art, and he was talking about how he felt like it cheapens the experience, cheapens the product, and there's just something to be said about a handmade uh, piece of art that goes into a work and this that, and everything else. And I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment. And I also want to point out that in John's original video, he makes a distinction between commercial product and private use. And that is something that I've also brought up in a lot of my videos in the past. I believe firmly that AI is a tool. It can be overused in very real detriment to whatever field you're using it for. You should use it more like a prompt, more like a brainstorming tool. That's what helps. I feel that a GM at their table passing out handouts of pictures, images, whatever to help better convey the idea of the scene that they are describing. I don't believe there's anything ethically or morally wrong about that. I also don't believe that AI art is theft because theft, as defined, is the deprivation of a thing uh, or something of monetary value against an individual by another individual. That is not happening. Okay, there is no money being taken away from people from this from the use of this tool when it comes to private use. We get into more different dilemma when it comes to commercial use, but even then it's not really theft as defined. It's not taking money away from anything. It's simply taking the place of someone. So um and so we get into that territory just like piracy, video game piracy, right? Was always defined as theft back in the 80s and 90s. It's not theft to pirate a game because you are not depriving somebody of the use of that particular product. However, you can say that it is as bad as theft using a simile. You can say that it is like theft in this regard. It's as bad as theft in this regard, but it's not that it is its own total different thing. So it is imperative that we define terms and instead of having these knee-jerk reactions, really think about what we're saying. However, I felt like John made the distinction very clear in his video, saying that when it comes to use at a private table, it's totally different than when you're putting out a product for the market. I brought this up in my review of Beneath the Sunken Catacombs. I felt that Paul Bantock, while the rule set itself I didn't think was earth-shattering, I didn't feel like I wasted my $2 or $3 on it. I felt that, in fact, my biggest complaint was the AI art in it because I felt like it took away too much, especially on pages where it seemed to make the image and the lettering on the page because they were the same tint and because of how dark the tint of the pages already was, that it seemed to make things murky and muddy and it made it hard to read. And I felt like it would have been better served not to have had that kind of artwork at all. It was different if you used it for a cover, fine, whatever. It's just something as a placeholder. But at the end of the day, you were paying $2 or $3, and you probably wasn't buying this thing for the images anyways. You was buying it for the rules, which I felt like added kind of like it was okay. It was serviceable. It's something that you could definitely squeeze into a white box fantasy medieval adventure game, right? Or what have you. So I feel like that distinction needs to be made. The difference between Mr. Bantock's work and say Wizards of the Coast work is night and day. We're talking about a product that is like I really don't know what the new edition costs. I just know it's an insane amount for the kind of artwork that's in it. And it is too much, just too much. And I'm sure they're going to fall apart like the 5e books did. Because for whatever reason, Wizards of the Coast doesn't stitch their pages. How you don't do that, I don't know, considering that Smithsonian is not exactly a very expensive process anymore. But, anyways, I'm rambling now. I feel that we need to make sure, again, John made these distinctions between private and public use, between private use and public consumption. And he points out that he feels like it cheapens the product. I agree. I understand that not all of us are Errol Otis or Larry Elmore or Jeff Easley. I understand that. I'm certainly no artist. And coming from the position of a guy who has been burned by commissioned artists in the past, I had one steal my money, I got my money back. And I had another that lied about her portfolio, and it wasn't true. She catfished me into thinking that her artwork was better than what it was, and turned out she had the skills of the rudimentary skills of a fifth grader in art class. And even at that point, I could have done a better job. So why pay her when I could have done it myself? That being said, never underestimate an excellent artist. That's why we remember names like Jeff Easley, Larry Elmore, Errol Otis, and the list goes on and on. We remember these artists because of their art. Uh, Some of us for more wholesome reasons than others. But be that as it may, the pieces that they did live on uh, in the legacy that they have left in this hobby. And I feel that when okay, give me a second here. When I open this book, right? Like I have no doubts that whoever drew this was a legit person. This is certainly better than what I could do. I'm no artist. And looking at the hands and the poses, the dynamic poses, everything that of the characters in these books and the monsters and so on and so forth, like it's something that can't be replicated by AI, at least not now. And I hope it never does, because there's something to be said about the human element behind things. And I want to really stress that human element because even though I'm not an artist, I am a musician. I've played music almost all my life. That's the hobby that I've had the longest, that I've stuck with and dedicated most of my life to. There's something about the tiny imperfections in a work. We there's something about Jimmy Page's honking Les Paul. It has that goosey sound. When he plays Immigrant Song, it just has a tone to it that can't be replicated because there's just something about the combination of his touch and the equipment he was using. There, there's something to be said about the imperfections in like Stevie Ray Vaughan's playing. That dude just absolutely beat the crap out of strings. He had a very heavy hand. It was whenever I started playing blues rock, he was my hero. He's my favorite guitar player of all time. And he attacks the strings to the point where he used surgical tubing and put them at the ends of his strings where the strings meet the bridge to try to avoid them breaking so often because he would just absolutely beat the tar out of it. If he was using auto tuning, that kind of dynamic attack would be left unheard. Nobody would have ever heard it. He would just beat the crap out of his strings. So, and there's just something, you cannot play Pride and Joy without really chugging into the strings, just really digging in there to get that shuffle riff, that because there's string skipping, and you're using the meat of your hands. There's nothing elegant about it. It's all just about the rhythm and the way that you use your hand as you hit those strings. But I'm rambling now. So I've kept you too long. It's been 10 minutes. I felt like I've said what I could say. So as always, guys, take care. God bless. I'll see you on the other side.